welcome to Broken Entertainment. So today, we're going to break down the demise of Doctor Who. And more than likely, in the next, 2 to 5 years, this show is going to be off the air. But I want to, when I say demise, I'm going to want you to understand exactly what I mean. Because it's easy to go into hyperbole and say, oh, Doctor Who is dead, without saying why, or showing the evidence that it is in fact basically dead. It's already there. It just doesn't acknowledge it yet. But I'm not going to start with the news that has been going around recently. I want to start with some ratings numbers. And here I have the average ratings per season of Doctor Who. Now this goes all the way back to 1963. Congrats to whoever compiled this. But you can see that for the vast majority of the show's existence, we're looking at 6 million, 8 million, 7 million, 8 million, 8 million, 10 million, 10 million. There's a dip into 5. And then in the show's final seasons of its original run, it drops down to 4.80 million. Now, this is just in the United Kingdom. Okay, and these are years when 9 million people watching in 1965 is huge. Okay, this show was massive. And I do mean was. So then it drops off in the 80s and it goes away. They cancel it. Mostly bad writing. The Seventh Doctor was played well. Ace, the companion, is a popular companion even today. The writing was just, they were out of ideas. They didn't take it seriously like they used to. They didn't have the writing there to back it up anymore. Now you hit 1996, the TV movie, 9.8 million. Then the show comes back in 2005, 8 million, 7 million, 7 million, 8 million. The 2009 special. The specials are going to be important here. I don't have the numbers on the specials from back in the day. We'll start with the first special, essentially, the TV movie, 9 million. This really shows you what's happening. Then we get to 2009, and the special, 10 million. And then the following special after that, there's 3 of them, averaging 10 million. Then the special after that, 2016, we're talking about one show, 1 hour, 7 million. 2019, 7 million. There's a couple specials that are on here, but they're all in the 9s and 10s as well. I actually think I can bring them up here. Yes. Day of the Doctor, 12 million. Time of the Doctor, 11 million. This one here, 10.7 million. A Christmas Carol, 12 million. The End of Time, parts 1 and 2, 12 million. The Waters of Mars, 10 million. The Next Doctor, 13. Voyage of the Damned, 13 million. The Christmas Invasion, 9.8. The Runaway Bride, 9.4. Then you come down to the special, 2019, 7 million. Okay? Still respectable. Low for a special, but respectable. And then let's look at this one. 2022, 3.93 million people. I don't have the numbers in front of me here, but in the United States, you're talking about 400,000. 400,000 people in the United States. Doctor Who was huge over here during the David Tennant and Matt Smith eras. Merchandise everywhere. Anywhere you see Game of Thrones merchandise or Harry Potter merchandise now, that was Doctor Who. Now you don't see almost any of it because no one watches, no one cares anymore because the show's dead. The passion, the commitment, the loyalty is gone. It didn't happen overnight. That does not happen overnight. It takes a long time and hard work to get to that point. 3.93 million for a special. Historically terrible. I think we can go back to 3 Doctors, 10 million people. That's still in the 70s. So you can go all the way back to the 70s and see their specials raking in 9 and 10 million views. And in 2022, 3.93. It's dead. It's over. They just haven't buried the corpse. And we've gotten here through a long arduous, painful road that has been unlike anything I have seen in any of our entertainment. And it's really been incredible. It has combined a disregard for the lore, a disrespect of the fans, disrespect of entire groups of people, and pandering to the worst possible degree I have seen. Cynical, horrible pandering. You know, people can say, well, they really care about representation. No, they don't. No, they don't. What they care about is points. What they care about is sending a message. They don't care about the representation. If you're a minority and you're thinking, oh, well, they're trying to represent me in the show. No, they don't care about you. They don't care. Because they did with brand new characters, with interesting storylines, and none of the bylines, none of the nonsense that we see now. If you want to talk about sexuality, you have Captain Jack Harkness. He was pansexual. And you know what? That was an aspect of his character, and it gets referenced and played to a couple of times when he shows up. Doctor even sets him up with a guy at one point at the end of an episode. We go from that where it's part of his character, part of his person, but it's not what you think about. It's not the thing. It's not his identifying characteristic. Nobody said at the time pansexual companion Jack Harkness. But just Jack Harkness. Super popular character, charismatic, interesting, played well off the Doctor, multiple different Doctors, becomes the face of Bo, gets his own spin-off series, Torchwood, which does well initially until it starts doing kind of the same thing. So it's not about representation, because if it were, you'd have these interesting characters like Jack Harkness. You don't have interesting characters, so you have Bill Potts. I'm going to harp on Bill for a minute. Bill was the first openly lesbian companion of the Doctor. And she was flat. And you can type in one of the first articles that come up. First openly gay companion. What do you hear about the character? Nothing. Now this is a post analysis where it talks more about her character, which is fine. She was almost an interesting character. New Doctor Who companion. Bill's gay. It shouldn't be a big deal that Bill is gay, but they played it as a big deal. I agree with her. It shouldn't be a big deal. It should have been an aspect of her character. But Bill Potts, when she came out, was lesbian, 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 lesbian. That's all you heard about the character. And I would be interested to see what your memories are if you are a fan of Doctor Who and watched this season of this character. Without looking anything up. I want to see it in the comments. Let me know. Because I remember her very vaguely. I remember the actress did a fine job. Not exceptional, not terrible, just fine. And the character is not memorable. I remember very little about her. And when you go and you look, first openly gay companion, over and over and over again. And why? Because they wanted you to clap. They wanted you to be a seal. Clap. Yay. Because they don't care about actual diverse representation. They wanted to score a point they hadn't scored before. And in article after article and a couple episodes early on, gay, 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 gay. That's all you heard. The rest of her character, sidelined, not important, focus on this. But it gets worse from Bill Potts. You're starting to get that with everything, and we'll get into that. But I'll come back around to that, because I don't want to dive too far into the modern stuff yet. They started doing this earlier than you might think. But if they really cared about representation, you already had it there. You just had to keep doing it. Martha Jones, one of David Tennant's companions, was a black woman. One of the first ones I can remember as a companion. And I have watched almost every episode from 1963. I'm not that old. I've just gone back and watched them. And that wasn't a big deal. Not to the fans, not to BBC, not to Doctor Who. in general wasn't part of the plot ever. It was a throwaway line at one point when they go back to the 15th century England. And she makes a comment and he just brushes it off as it's unimportant. And we see this with so much of our entertainment, right? Where, now Superman's gay, now Batman's gay. Well, if you cared, you would make a character that is a new one. And you'd make them interesting, and you'd just make that a part of who they are. Not the byline, not the headline, not the everything you hear about them is this. And it started to turn people away from Doctor Who, starting in Clara's run as the companion of Peter Capaldi. Now, some of the people leaving, it was the writing. But some people were annoyed that gradually, bit by bit, Clara was written as being smarter than the Doctor, more important than the Doctor, more capable than the Doctor, and by her last season, it was basically her show. And there was a distinct anti-male aura around it all, where she just started looking down on him, or at least was written that way. I don't think that was in the original character design. I think the BBC pushed and pushed for her to become more important than the Doctor. I do. And she becomes the girl that's the key to everything, right? And it's just, it pushed people away, because God, I turned in to watch Doctor Who. I didn't turn in to watch the Clara show. That's where it kind of really starts. And you might be able to argue for a little bit farther back, but for me, that's where it started to annoy me. Where I'm like, there have been so many wonderful female characters on this show, and you're going to hype this one up and make her smarter and condescending towards the Doctor. So many amazing, going back to day one, Susan, great character. People now will tell you that all she did was scream and run, but that's not true. Go watch the show. She starts out kind of that way because she's a kid, but she evolves over time. And, you get Leela, who is an actual fighter. Ace is something of a fighter as well. Sarah Jane Smith. Incredible. So incredible, she got her own spin-off after the modern show was up and running that did well all on its own. Romana, another Time Lord. Time Lady, technically. This was all there. All of these characters were there. But they started to act like it hadn't happened before. You started to hear about, in the old show, women were just there to watch. It's nonsense spouted by Jodie Whittaker. Well, the women were just there to watch the Doctor save the day. Oh, please. Did you watch the show? Oh, wait, no, you didn't. Jodie Whittaker didn't watch the show. She said that. She bragged about it. This is not representation. This is not diversity. This is not how that works. You don't get to glue something else on top of an existing character and get patted on the back because you clearly don't care. If you did, you'd make your own character. Where do you think Jack Harkness came from? And one of the most popular characters on the show. Then you come back and you look at these ratings. Now I'm going to rewind a little farther because I kind of got into Jodie Whittaker. I'm going to back up. Peter Capaldi's run Peter Capaldi starts 2014 and ends 2017. So let's go back. Let's look. 2014 average rating 7.34 million. That's down close to 1 million. Drops down to 6 million. Jumps back up to 7 million. But that's for the special. Falls down to 5.64 now. What do you have going on in these seasons? Poor writing, lack of ideas, and Clara Oswald getting increasingly condescending, more and more jibes about men. Then finally, in his last season, you get Bill Potts. Now, Bill Potts didn't drop this down to 5.64 million. But by then, you'd lost people with a combination of those things. Peter Capaldi is generally respected as a very good doctor. It's his run in the writing that isn't very good. But he was so good to me that I can go back and watch even his worst episodes, except for the Sherwood Forest one, because they shoot down a spaceship with a gold arrow. That's just a little much. But I like the way he acted as the Doctor, so I can go back and rewatch him. That's fine. He's one of my favorite Doctors. But his writing was terrible, on average. Or at least just not very good. So, 2019 comes around. 2018 comes around. We jump up to 7.96 million. What happens in 7.96 million? Let's jump down. What happens in there? You have a 10 million viewer blip in the first episode, and it just drops and drops and drops and drops and drops and drops over the course of the season until the following season, 5.40 million. And the season after that, 5.16 million. And now for the special, which has historically, as I have gone over, generated more views, 3.93, which means that's probably higher than we were going to get with a full season. Well, let's start. We talked about representation. Let's talk about it some more. The first thing is Jodie Whittaker herself, the 13th Doctor. Every time you read an article about her or hear about her, Jodie Whittaker, the first female Doctor. 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 You mean Jodie Whittaker, the Doctor. That's the end of sentence. You don't need that other crap, because it doesn't matter. And if you wanted... First of all, the Doctor is male. I'm just going to say it. But if you wanted to make a female-centered show like Doctor Who, the options already existed. They threw them all out the window to glue a new gender on top of the Doctor and say, this is the first female Doctor. There's a whole season of Peter Capaldi's run built up to make you think that a Time Lord has always been able to switch genders. But historically, they have not. Don't get me wrong, Missy was very well played. And you could see the Master stealing somebody's body, because he's done that before. Instead, they played it off as regeneration. But the point of that was to get you ready to accept what they knew they were already going to do. Turn the Doctor into a woman. And then pat themselves on the back and wait for the clapping seals. But that's not representation. They already had it. Let's go over the spin-off shows they could have done. And yes, a spin-off show would have been fine. Sarah Jane Smith, her show, aimed for a younger audience, did very well. Susan, the Doctor's granddaughter, I mean, come on. And people have been asking for more stories about Susan since forever. Romana, the Time Lady who traveled with the Fourth Doctor. The Doctor's daughter from the David Tennant episode of the same name, who was a partial clone of David Tennant's Doctor, who dies in the episode, and the episode ends with her regenerating, taking a spaceship, and saying she's going to follow in her father's footsteps. There's a whole show right there. Pre-launched. But no, we're going to turn the Doctor female because we'll get more points for doing it. Then we're going to say it's representation. We're going to take somebody else's scraps, and we're going to give them to you, and we're going to wait for you to clap. That's what they did. And 10 million people gave her a shot. I quit watching halfway through her first season because it was constant picking at men. Constantly. Pick. To the point where, I forget what episode, I hadn't been watching it by the time it happened. Someone points out that the Doctor's a woman and she says, yeah, I've had an upgrade. That's called misandry. But I guess they've never heard of it or they think it's great. But that's what that is. If you say one gender, turn that sentence around. Make the Doctor where she's always been female and they've made her male. Have somebody say it. And then have the male version of the Doctor say, yeah, I've had an upgrade. So they had all these options they could have run with. Done great shows that people would have enjoyed and liked. People wanted to see Susan episodes. They want to see Romana is a favorite character from back in the day. If you don't want to go back that far, the Doctor's daughter. That episode did well. That character was interesting. The actress was interesting. The premise is there. You could run with it. You could do crossovers. Hell, you could do two. You could do her and Romana or and Susan in two different shows. You could cross them all over from time to time. So many stories in all of those options. But no, they're going to change the Doctor and wait for you to clap. and say it's representation. It's not. They had it. They could have run with it. Or they could have made an original character all their own. That would require effort and good writing, which neither of which they put into Jodie Whittaker's run. First of all, Jodie Whittaker was terrible as the Doctor. Just as an actress, she was just bad. I'm sorry. Second of all, her scripts were terrible. In the most recent ones, okay, they kill off the whole universe except for like a small part, and then they don't fix it. Then you get to the Timeless Child, which is where 2 million people noped out. Guarantee it. That drop to 3.93, Timeless Child. Do you know what happened in the Timeless Child? If you're not familiar, the Doctor has always been male, has always been a Time Lord from Gallifrey. In the Timeless Child, they retconned all of that. So the Doctor was originally female, not Gallifreyan, not a Time Lord, but was tortured by an adoptive mother to get the secrets for regeneration. They were stolen by Rassilon and given to the Gallifreyans who become Time Lords. And the Doctor goes through all these younger regeneration cycles of being black, of being female, for so long until finally she turns into the male Doctor that we're all familiar with. So they retcon 60 years of history in the name of representation. That's not representation. That's taking something from somebody else, slapping a different label on it, and giving it to somebody else and patting them on the head. You're too hard to make original shows and characters for. Here's this one that's already successful. Let's take that. You can use that. Now, finally, we get to this nonsense. Doctor Who makes Whittaker's companion romance problem even worse. No, actually, sorry, I'm going to back up a minute. So Jodie Whittaker has been terrible to the fans, okay? The BBC has also said terrible things to the fans because they didn't like her casting. Or they didn't like her episodes. Or they didn't like the misandry that was spammed throughout her episodes. Do you know, for me, where it wasn't where I quit watching, but it was the point where I said, okay, I'm out. And I didn't think I was ever going to do another Doctor Who video or talk about the show ever again, other than to watch old shows. Her companion, who was a white male at the time, one of her companions, was a cancer survivor. And they were having a heart-to-heart in the TARDIS, and he said the thing he feared most, I'm paraphrasing, the thing he feared most was his cancer coming back. How many people do you know? Or have heard of? Or can you think of where that's true? A lot. It's a very real, very scary thing for a lot of people. And I lost my father-in-law to cancer. And these assholes didn't have the Doctor be compassionate. They didn't have the Doctor say something to try and make the situation better. She'd been compassionate to everybody else. The other companions who are different minorities. But when the white guy was afraid his cancer was going to come back, she brushed him the fuck off. And that was the moment where I said, go to hell. And that's why this pisses me off so much. Because she brushed him off. Oh, I'm socially awkward. I don't really know what to say. So I'm just going to pretend I said something clever and walk away. Go to hell. Go to hell for saying it. Go to hell for writing it. Go to hell for coming up with the idea. And after the Doctor has already been socially awkward, quote unquote, with the other characters and addressed their fears, he has this fear, and it's, sorry, are you kidding me? And I try, I'm sorry, I try not to go off and cuss too much in my videos anymore. But this show just makes me so mad because of that. And that's only the tip of the iceberg. Then you go forward, okay? Now, I want to explain the character of Yasmin for a minute, if you're not familiar. Yasmin's one of the Doctor's companions. She was a companion when I was watching the show through half of Jodie Whittaker's first season. She did not have defined sexuality as far as I'm aware. All of a sudden, she's lesbian. And they do this will they, won't they thing with the Doctor. And they don't even do it well. Okay? This is Screen Rant. They're sympathetic to this. This says a lot. Okay? This is your representation here. Your air quotes representation, which is nonsense. Oh yeah, let's make Yasmin suddenly gay, and let's make the Doctor suddenly gay. That way we can have some gay characters and maybe a gay romance. But we're not actually going to do the gay romance because we're afraid to actually do it, but we're going to kind of do it, but not really. Legend of the Sea Devils saw several awkward moments between the Doctor and Yaz as they skirted the issue, but they finally addressed it at the end. The scene was tremendously well acted. I doubt it. Jodie Whittaker and Gil are both not good actresses, I'm sorry. In the current era, would have been wise to make their new relationship its center all along. If they had done that from the beginning, you could have. I wouldn't be saying this because she would have come in already lesbian, and the Doctor sexuality probably doesn't change just because the gender does. Okay, so you could kind of see that if they had built that up from day one, but they didn't. They just glued it on at the end of the run because they're like, oh crap, we haven't done any lesbian stuff this time, and we've got Jodie Whittaker about to leave, and we're going to replace her with a guy, so we got to do this quick. Sadly, the script took the traditional direction that's been done many times before, with the Doctor reluctant to have a relationship with Yaz simply because she is immortal, where Yaz is not. The only new twist was a rather disturbing near accusation from Yaz that to refuse a relationship because of fear of getting hurt is cowardice. Otherwise, everything in this scene had been done before and better. And it has. Several times. That's not representation. Representation would have been doing it from day one, with Yaz coming in as a gay character, building that relationship from day one. But no, you're running onto the final couple episodes with Jodie Whittaker. Oh shoot, we didn't do anything lesbian related. Let's do that, but let's not quite, because we're just gonna kill her anyway. Now we have the modern show. So let's go here. This is your new Doctor. Name is Ncuti Gatwa, I believe. I don't know anything about him. I do know he's gay, because they keep saying that over and over again, but that's all I know. He was in some other show, don't know anything about it. You watch his interviews, and the first interview is pretty good. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. Because that's the thing. Nobody started, he was cast, and we're like, yeah, of course. But at the same time, you're like, well, let's see where this goes. Maybe he'll be good. And then, and we still haven't seen him. I will put that caveat in. But everything he said after the first interview has been messaging, literally saying messaging. We can have our stronger messaging. People just want to be entertained, damn it. We just want to be entertained. Nobody wants a message right now. Ukraine is on fire. Inflation is through the roof. Gas is like something stupid per gallon. Food is really high and expensive. And you can't get baby formula. But let's talk about messaging. No one wants a message. We want to be entertained. And yes, people want representation, but they want it done well. They don't want to be handed scraps. So shut up about the messaging and go out there and act. I would love for the interviews to be meaningless and for this guy to go out there and just nail it as a good Doctor. But with the BBC's history, I have no reason to believe they won't just shove more messaging in. And finally, transgender actress Yasmin Finney joins Doctor Who as Rose. That was an intentional headline. I want you to understand that. This was designed to make people angry. Rose Tyler was one of the most famous and most popular companions of the modern era. She's a white woman. So when they said, this article came out after they said the 10th Doctor was coming back for the 60th anniversary special. Then they said, Yasmin Finney joins Doctor Who as Rose. That was designed to make people angry. When you find out later, when they clarify it, they're saying, oh, it's not Rose Tyler, it's somebody else named Rose. They're using you, if you are one of these minorities, they are using you for messaging, and they're using you to make people upset, to twist the knife in their fan base a little bit more, to make them think they're going to replace a beloved character with a different person altogether. Make you think they're going to replace this beloved companion with a totally different actress. And then back up saying, oh, look at those guys get angry. They're using you. They've been using you. Otherwise, why did Jodie Whittaker happen at all? When you could have had all the options I listed before. Otherwise, why did the Timeless Child happen? Otherwise, why does any of this happen? Because the characters existed before. But we're going to pretend they didn't. We're going to take and we're going to slap a new label on top of something old that is already successful, and we're going to hand it to the minorities involved, and we're going to tell them how great it is. Look at you. If they really cared, they'd make new characters, new shows. If they really cared, Yasmin would not be playing a character named Rose. Whether it be Rose Tyler or just Rose whatever, it doesn't matter. Yasmin would be playing a new character altogether with a different name because they're trying to draw the crowd as well as piss people off. They're trying to draw a specific crowd and say, look, they're trying to get the Rose Tyler people, and they're trying to get the David Tennant people, and they're trying to get a select minority and bring them in so they can get the ratings up before they switch to this new doctor. That's what they're doing to you. That's what they're doing to everybody. Representation was Martha Jones. Representation was Jack Harkness. Representation was Mickey Smith. Representation was Leela and Romana. You could have had Yasmin, Finney, come in as a companion. Name them whatever you want. But no, you wanted to tie into that Rose success line, but then not quite pull the trigger because you don't think you can make a transgender character from scratch be successful. You gotta tie her into stuff. I guarantee you, if this actress is good, and the writing was good, and they gave her a different name and didn't tie her into any of that nonsense, she would have been popular. Guarantee it. Because every time they have done that combination of things, it has been successful. Martha Jones is popular. Mickey Smith less so, but he's kind of a third act kind of guy. He's a third wheel kind of guy. Romana, super popular. Susan, super popular. The Doctor's Daughter, interesting. Rose Tyler, I just got done talking about her. Very popular character, female. Strong character who helps save the Doctor. It's all been there already. But now they want to just hand you crumbs. They just want to hand minorities crumbs and say, hey, look how good we are. Why not bring Yasmin Finney in as a character whose name is utterly unrelated to previous past companions? Why this headline? I'm not saying, let's make no mistake, I am not saying not to cast this person in the show. I'm not saying not to cast this person in the show. I'm not saying not to have strong female companions. I'm not saying not to have a spin-off show about a female character. I'm saying don't take something, slap a new label on it, and call it representation, because it isn't. One of my favorite characters is Captain Jack. The problem is it makes me it doesn't bother me just in the sense of, hey, they're changing this show that I loved for so long into something unrecognizable. It bothers me in the sense of you're lying to people. You're giving people scraps and telling them to be happy about it instead of making something new and original. What is their problem? It's not like there's no history of new original characters of various minorities being popular. I've listed the ones in Doctor Who. Let's go back into comics. Wonder Woman, Catwoman, Batgirl. Let's see, who else can I think of? Oh yeah, Jon Stewart. Hawkgirl, Storm, Black Panther. Wonder Woman came out in the 40s, man. These are all popular characters. Minority popular characters. Let me know what you think in the comments. I won't be this angry all the time. If you're new to the channel, I'm not usually this angry. But this show and the way they treat minorities, the way they treat the fans, the way they treat people in general, the way they condescend to you, it just pisses me off like nothing else. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Ring the bell for notifications, and I will see you next time.